We're gonna take it nice and easy on the channel today, and we're gonna edit 10 of my favorite film photos that I've taken over the past couple months, and I'm gonna show you how I edit those photos in Lightroom. So let's get my new Razer Blade 14, also known as the world's crappiest laptop, but more on that later. Cool, so the first photo that I've got for you guys was taken on Lomochrome Metropolis, the old formulation, and it's at a rail yard in Harlan, Kentucky. And you can see I've got this little rail flag kind of situation in the foreground. I've got the train tracks running from left to right on the frame. And then I've also got a row of train cars themselves there in the distance, and you can see the mountains behind there. I think this is a good photo to kind of show you some of my editing techniques for film photography. On the one hand, you want to make the photo look really cool and interesting, but on the other hand, you also want to stay true to the film stock and the colors that were there to begin with. So you're going to see as we go throughout editing these photos, it's going to be a balancing act. So we've got our develop module up here. First of all, I'm going to increase the contrast because at least to me it looks like this photo is a little bit washed out. And to help with that, particularly in the center of the frame, it seems like it's very light, almost like the film wasn't laying flat inside my FM2. I'm going to pull down the highlights some to compensate with that. And again, we're not going to do too much to this picture. That warmer tone, those washed out colors, that is indicative of Lomochrome Metropolis. I don't like the appearance that cooling it gave. And here you can see the before and after views. You know, I'm not gonna push the saturation up too crazy. And that's probably what I'm comfortable leaving as a final result right there. You can see we've dragged the highlights down some, the whites down, and the blacks, and then also increased the contrast a little bit. And we've left the colors largely intact. And I think that's just a much nicer image. You can see the before and the after. The left is very washed out, very plain, and that's an okay look, but I like the much more rich, contrasty look on the right. But at the same time, I think it stays true to that Lomochrome Metropolis look to begin with, so I like that. Moving on to some CineStill 800T. So now we've got a photo of my old college. This is Union College in Barberville, Kentucky. They call this little section the Loop that goes in front of Centennial Hall, which is the big building there kind of in the center. And I love the way these old lampposts are positioned in the frame, and the curve of the road creates for a very interesting composition. You got the library off to the left here. But let's start by cooling the temperature some. I know it's CineStill 800T, it's tungsten balanced, but I can still see a lot of green and kind of yellow in that frame that I'm not really digging too much. So I'm gonna cool it just a little. And see, that's more what I'm talking about. Let's drop the blacks a little bit even more. So you can see how easy it is editing some of these film shots. Like, I've only really done a few things to this frame, and you can see the before on the left, it's slightly green, slightly yellow, and then I've just cooled it a little further. To me, that's the look that CineStill gives you typically when I see photos posted online. It's a little cooler. So even though CineStill 800T is tungsten balanced, it yields a cooler looking image. I liked it even a little cooler than that. So I think that I'm satisfied with that right there, honestly. Let's move on to the next one. And this is another frame of CineStill, and this is on Route 66. You can see these light trails off in the distance and these two old gas pumps kind of framed on the thirds right in the center. I think this is a cool shot. One thing that sucks about this photo is my shadow right here, but we're gonna ignore that. If I was really interested in creating a final output, I might go through and try to convolute, try to get rid of my shadow, but in this frame, I'm not gonna worry about it. So again, I'm pulling the highlights down here. A lot of detail was lost kind of up near these neon lights, and I'm just trying to bring a little bit of that back. Increase the contrast and maybe raise the exposure just a little bit. And I've slightly increased the color temperature of the shot, although I don't think this frame suffers like the last one did from having that annoying kind of coloring. I think this looks a little better. Let's look at the before and after. And see, we haven't done too much to that. Again, we're staying true to that film emulsion. We're not deviating too far from the original frame. We're really just enhancing what's already there. The way to look at film, at least in my mind, is kind of like the preset, right? Like you don't see me adding any particular presets to these frames. The film is the preset. The colors are already baked in, and maybe they need a few little changes, a few little white balance tweaks. But far and wide, what you have there is pretty good. But the one on the right, you can see much richer. I like that one quite a bit more. All right, so another shot, another CineStill shot. And you can see those halation effects around the rim of this building. I honestly think that's really sick. I really like the way that looks. But again, this is on Route 66 as well. So we're losing a lot of detail in the building underneath these lights. So I'm gonna pull the highlights down some and try to bring some of that back. and then maybe pull a little bit more out of the shadows as well. Pulling up the shadows really adds to the pink light that's coming down from this heart, kind of splashing on the ground. So I think that's a really interesting look. Maybe increase the saturation just a little bit. Yeah, we can get a little crazy on this one. And I'm gonna try shifting this one a little cooler. And again, that's really turning that pink purple, but what it's really doing is getting rid of some of this yellow. See, we're shifting it to the blue side from the yellow side. It's really getting rid of a lot of this yellow on the wall. And that's true to what my eyes saw. The building was much more blue tinged. Increase the blacks, pull up the shadows even more. And maybe we're getting a little crazy with that edit, but that's, I mean, honestly, that's so much better. Such a better edit right there than the first one. That's just a gorgeous shot. I love that. Maybe it's a tad overdone, but I really think that's a great looking shot. Really happy with that. All right, on to the next one, and this is the famous blue Swallow Motel on Route 66, and we are on Kodak XR 100 here on my Mamiya M645. So let's jump into Lightroom and see what we can get out of this one. So starting off here, we're gonna pull the highlights down again. Again, that's just bringing some detail back into the words here, blue swallow, and some of the lights around the building. Maybe pull up the shadows just a fuzz. Increase the contrast, that's helping it a lot. I don't want to get so crazy with the blacks on this one because I can already see we're gonna lose the blacks on the side of the car here. Yeah, see, like that looks okay. That's probably where we need to be. Try pulling up the shadows a little more. And I'm a little bit afraid to touch the saturation too much on this frame as well. The reds are already popping. Yeah, see, look, that's getting way, way overdone. Like, we're starting to get into Ken Rockwell territory here. Shout out to Ken Rockwell, but that's ridiculous. Let's turn it down to a much more respectable level. Again, you don't want to overdo it. That's kind of the art of editing these pictures. It's just taking what's there and enhancing it. Let's look at the before and after here. Again, subtle. There's not that much different between the left and the right, but the right really just pops. On to the next one. And talking about subtle frames, here's a very, very subtle shot on Portrait 160 from Guadalupe Mountains National Park. It's gonna be very easy for the editing to get out of hand here, but we're gonna do our best. So start by pulling the highlights down. And again, we're just trying to get some detail back in these clouds up here. It looks like we've lost a ton of detail. We'll drop the blacks pretty heavily here. And you can see that's really helping the look a lot. And I'm adding just a touch of saturation. And that right there to me is a pretty good looking shot. Again, that stays true to Portrait 160. You can see that orange hue that you usually get with the portrait colors, and perhaps it's just a little overdone here. So again, it stays true to the film emulsion, but really just kind of pops. So let's look at the before and after. So there we are. You can see on the left, the one on the left is really kind of washed out. And the one on the right, you can see much more contrast and much more saturation, just kind of pops. So I'm satisfied with that. All right, here is an interesting frame. This is the edge of a building and it's shot on Lomochrome Purple. And again, I think about Lomochrome Purple shots in a particular way. They're just these rich, purplish, pink, wildly saturated shots. So again, you can see the purple, it's very subtle, and then the shades of blue scattered throughout the frame. So I'm gonna try to really amplify this. This is one I kind of want to go wild on. And spoiler alert, I've already edited this once for my Instagram. And again, we have a tinge of green coming through the frame here, which I'm not crazy about. So I'm gonna try to remove that as best as I can. Shift the frame towards blue. So now look how much better that looks, just by changing the white balance on it. Now this is more what I think of when I think of Lomochrome Purple. I think of purple and teal. And I think that is already starting to look like a pretty dang nice shot. We're increasing the blacks, turn the color temperature down some more, really amp up the saturation. And that is starting to look like a really cool shot. Maybe we want even a little more contrast. And again, maybe that's overdone, but to my taste, that's a really cool looking shot right there. So let's look at the before and after. And this is Lomochrome Purple on 35mm. So you can take a look here. It's a grainy mess. This is in Knoxville, by the way, Knoxville, Tennessee. I shot this on a disposable. So look at that, before and after. To my eye, the one on the right is much, much more pleasing, even if it is just a bit overdone. You're shooting on Lomochrome Purple. Neither of those is an accurate representation of what was there, although that building is blue. The glass on that building is tinted blue, so the right is probably a little more accurate, but there was no pink light to be found. But that's a cool shot. Another Portra 160 shot, this time in downtown Louisville. Another Portra 160 shot, this time in downtown Louisville. And because I was shooting between two fence posts, you can see that I have this weird heavy vignetting on both sides of the frame. Let's start by leveling the horizon here, and then cropping in just a bit. And I like that composition right there. And it's still a little dark on the edge of the frame, but I don't want to lose too much of the shot. Again, we have a weird white balance situation here. There's this green, the road is green. I don't think that's very pleasing or interesting to anybody. So we're gonna try to fix that and shift the frame more towards the blue end of the spectrum here and get rid of that yellow. And you can see I've already dropped it 12 points. Let's leave it like 15 points here. And then also on the magenta green slider as well. I've changed that a little bit too. And you can see, let's do a quick before and after before we get crazy with the editing. And you can already see a very subtle shift in the colors here, but I think that's much more pleasing. The road is not green, it isn't yellow, it's more of a gray. And I think the colors on the right are a much more accurate representation of what was there and much more pleasing. So let's keep on editing. This is gonna be one that I'm gonna wanna pull the highlights down some on. You can see the background there, the sky's kind of blown out. And then maybe we increase the saturation a little bit. That's better. So there's the final result there. Much better, more realistic edit there. Portra 160 has this tendency to turn everything this orangish, brownish green color. And sometimes that really works, other times it doesn't. And with this city nightscape like this, I didn't care too much for it, but I think that that's a pretty good result. Now here is gonna be a tricky edit. This is on the new emulsion from Lomography, the new formulation of Lomochrome Metropolis. And I have this cool skateboarder. This is in downtown Louisville. It's on my Nikon FM2. I asked this guy if he cared if I shot a shot as he jumped down a set of stairs. And he did land it, drop the blacks. Turn up the saturation some. And I really like what raising the saturation is doing to the light leak over here in the corner. It's really making that more pronounced. Increase the contrast. Don't want to change the color temperature too much. I kind of like it is. Increase the shadows a little bit. Pull the highlights on down. All right. So let's look at the before and after now that I've messed around here. And again, nothing too outlandish, really just emphasizing the oranges in the frame by increasing the saturation. Really helped with the light leak. It made the oranges or whatever is on the billboard in the background kind of pop. And again, dropping the blacks to increase the contrast a little bit. Really cool shot, I like that. And my last shot, something in portrait orientation finally. This is one of my favorite shots from the night when I was out shooting in downtown Louisville. And you can check out that video, it's on the channel as well. But this was one of my favorite compositions from downtown. And so first of all, I'm gonna pull the highlights down. And you can see, unfortunately, much like this channel, I left it a little overexposed. There isn't much data there. So, you know, it sucks to suck and all that. But we are what we are. So let's keep plugging away. Maybe drop the color temperature just a little bit. Let's raise the shadows. Even the frame out just a little bit. And we'll try some saturation, although I think it's just gonna turn everything way orange. Yeah, I don't know if I care for that. This is another one of those Portra 160 shots from that night in Louisville. I don't know how many cars you've heard pass as I've been editing this video, but I apologize. This is what happens when you make videos during the day. I think I've touched every slider in Lightroom and really don't like any of them. So I think that probably what I'm gonna do is just not touch any. That's what I think I'm gonna do, is just not do anything. Sometimes you get it right in the camera, and that's another good lesson for shooting film. Sometimes it just comes out looking like it should look, and you don't need to try to reinvent the wheel. I'm gonna show you the before and after, but you can see there's not a world of difference between the two shots. There's no reason to try to create something that wasn't there. But that's how I edit my photos in Lightroom. If you want to see me out using my medium format camera and how I took a lot of these photos, at least the ones in downtown Louisville, check out this video.